Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really critical topic for every nonprofit in India: how you can invest your surplus funds without accidentally getting into legal trouble. So, let's say your NPO has some extra funds. You think the question of where to invest them would be pretty straightforward, right? You want to make that money work harder for your mission. But here's the thing. In India, the answer is way more complex than you'd imagine. It's actually a multi-layered maze of rules that can, believe it or not, sometimes even contradict each other. Okay, let's get into it. So where do we even begin? Well, we have to start with the big one, the main rulebook that applies to pretty much every single tax-exempt NPO in the country, the Income Tax Act. You can think of this as the absolute foundation for all investment compliance. And within that act, this one section, Section 11.5, is your North Star. It's your foundational guide, the starting point for any investment you're thinking about. It lays out a long, very specific list of what the government says is safe, what's permissible, and what keeps you in good standing with your tax-exempt status.
Now, when you look at this menu of options, you start to see a theme pretty quickly, right? It's all about security and stability. The government is clearly pointing you towards things like government-backed schemes and solid assets like property. But that immediately raises a huge question. What about more modern investment tools, like mutual funds?
And this is where things get really interesting. You scan that original list from the Act, and mutual funds are nowhere to be found. It's a huge omission. So to find the answer to that question, we actually have to dig one level deeper, into the nitty-gritty of the tax rules themselves.
And that search leads us right here to Rule 17C. This rule was basically added to bring the regulations up to date, and it gives us a very clear answer. It explicitly says, yes, NPOs can invest in mutual funds, with one condition: those funds have to be registered with the Securities and Exchange Board of India, SEBI. So it seems like we have our answer, doesn't it? The Income Tax Act and its rules give a green light. The door to all SEBI-registered mutual funds seems wide open. But, and trust me, this is a very big but, it is not that simple. The story is far from over. Because the moment your NPO accepts any funding from foreign sources, everything changes. A completely different and way stricter set of rules suddenly applies, and it creates a huge conflict with everything we've just established. And this right here is the first major trap you can fall into. It's a tale of two opposing laws. On one hand, the Income Tax Act says, sure, go ahead with any SEBI-registered mutual fund. But on the other hand, the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, or FCRA, shouts a hard no. It explicitly calls mutual funds a speculative investment and flat out forbids you from using any foreign money to invest in them. It's a direct, undeniable contradiction. Okay, so you might be thinking, all right, I got it. Domestic funds can go into mutual funds, foreign funds can't. Seems simple enough, right? Well, not so fast. There's still one more layer of compliance you have to peel back, and this one depends entirely on where in India your NPO is actually registered. You see, many states, and Maharashtra and Gujarat are perfect examples of this, have their own public trust acts. These are state-level laws, and here's the kicker. They can set their own, totally separate and often much stricter investment rules that can actually override the permissions you get from the Central Income Tax Act.
In a state like Maharashtra, this single line from their law changes the entire game. What it means is that the ultimate authority isn't the central government in Delhi, it's the state charity commissioner. They have the final word. So even if the Income Tax Act says all mutual funds are okay, your local charity commissioner might say, nope, only these specific types, or they might require you to get special written permission from them first.
Okay, so we've navigated this three-layered maze of central law, funding law, and state law. It's confusing. So how you actually make a decision without making a really expensive mistake? It all comes down to a simple, step-by-step checklist that you have to use for every single investment, every single time. Here it is. It's a three-step check. Step 1. Start at the center. Does the investment pass the Income Tax Act test? If yes, you can move to Step 2. Where did the money come from? If you're using foreign funds, you have to make sure you're not touching anything the FCRA calls speculative, which, remember, includes mutual funds. And finally, Step 3, and you cannot skip this. Look local. What do your state's own Trust Act regulations say? An investment is only truly safe and compliant if it gets a green light on all three of these levels.
And that's the question that every NPO leader, every board member in India really needs to be asking. True compliance isn't just about following one rule.
It's about understanding how this whole complex web of rules fits together, because a misstep at any one of these levels can have some very serious consequences. Thanks for joining this explainer.